All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. Appreciate you being here. We're super excited. Less than 2 weeks, about a week and a half away from the tournament weekend. So super excited about that. Looking forward to it. Making a lot of plans, getting everything ready for you guys, and we are super excited about that. So we did want to just meet with you here tonight to go over a couple things with you. If you have not seen the previous coach conference calls, they are on YouTube. This one will be recorded and placed there as well. Let's just have a word of prayer, and I'll jump in with a couple announcements, and then we're going to turn it over to Sam, I think primarily here for some things specifically about the game and reffing and that kind of thing to make sure that we have it together. So let's just bow our heads for prayer. Dear God, thank you for each coach that's here, each team member, and everybody that they represent in their schools and their communities. We just want to ask you bless them, keep them safe as they travel coming here, and help us all to have a good, fun time together at the robotics tournament. Thank you in Jesus' name, amen. All right, so a couple things I want to touch base on. Some of this might be a repeat, and I was told in school that if a professor repeats themselves, that means it's really important. So if you heard this before, I'm sorry. No, I'm not actually, but it is worth repeating. So a couple things. One is inspections. In the back of Game Manual Part 1 is the inspection checklist for robot inspection and field inspection. You should have already gone through that with your robot. It doesn't matter whether it passes right now or not, but it does matter if it passes on the tournament weekend. And the more you do that, the more you go through that, the better you will be and the happier everyone will be at that tournament. So we want everybody to be successful. So that's an important thing to reduce your stress. These are things that will reduce your stress as a coach on the tournament weekend. So another thing that will be important to reduce your stress on the tournament weekend is to make sure, of course, you have your team rosters printed out from the first dashboard, and you have everybody on that team roster and it's printed out, ready to go. Check-in will be a breeze if you have all of that. If you don't have that, it will be stressful for you. It's something we have to have, and we like to make it so people are not stressed out. Don't have undue stress. There will be stress enough as it is with the robotics tournament. Then we want the fun kind of stress though. The other thing that is important, it's worth repeating too, is protection for eyes and feet. So we've said this before, and I want to make, this has been an issue at past tournaments, and it tends to be an issue at other tournaments, and that is that you must wear safety glasses. If you have glasses like mine, you have to wear either safety glasses that completely cover it, or they need to be the ANSI certified hard plastic soft side shields there. They can't be the thin plastic ones. They have to be the hard ones. And that goes for anybody in the pit area. The pit area will be roped off if you're within the ropes of the pit area, or if you're in the competition area, you must wear safety glasses. So please work with us on that. Please help your teams. Please don't be the team that we have to come around and ask multiple times to do that. And just a hint is that the top of your head is not what needs to be protected. It's the eyes. So wearing them on the top of your head is not the same thing. So just help us out with that. And we're silly, but yet at the same time, that's a very real thing that happens. So please help us with that. Just a couple other things then. If you have not ordered your meals, please make sure you do so by Friday. Friday noon Eastern is the cutoff for that. So if you need meals ordered, I sent out the link multiple times. Please remember to order any meals for the weekend, and all the meals will be in the cafeteria. The Pathfinders from Forest Lake Church will be providing it. There's a different group that provided it last year. We're not using that one again. They did well for us at the last tournament, but it will be actually in the cafeterias where it will be served. So all week on Sunday, so as well as the Sabbath meals. And I've sent out emails about that. I won't go through all of those details, but please do go back and read that. The last thing, just want to note for your calendars, next year, the FTC Championship will be on April 14. So we are moving it to a different day. You will see in the gym this weekend, next weekend, that the gym will be very full. And as we continue to grow, it's an exciting challenge, but part of that challenge is 2 tournaments at the same time in one gym is getting to be a little bit much. It will be fun, but the logistics and the space get to be a little bit challenging there. So just put that on your calendar. We're looking forward to seeing everybody again next year. And if you haven't noticed behind me, the First in Show banner, that is the theme for next year. The video, the kickoff video, or that's not the kickoff video, but the theme video is on our website and out on First social media. So that is out there, and it is Center Stage is the name for the FTC specific game next year. So, and the First Lego League one is, oh my, I'm drawing a blank right now. It's on the
Masterpiece.
website. Masterpiece. Yes, thank you. That's what it is. Masterpiece. So it's art infused technology is what we're looking at. Art infused technology is the theme for next year. So anyway, just with that, thank you very much. We will have some times for Q&A at the end here, but I want to turn it over to Sam here to go over some of the details for the reffing specifically. So Sam, take it away.
All right, thank you. Yes, so today, can I have screen sharing? So I'm going to talk specifically today about human players and human player rules. Yeah, Mel, can you turn on screen sharing so I can put the manual up on the screen? I'm getting host. Oh, there we go. We're good. All right. Here. So I started on the robot inspection checklist. Just to show you what that looks like. Field inspection. So we're in game manual part 1 here. Moving over to game manual part 2. We're going to talk some about human players. And here's human player constraints, but I'm actually going to go up to start with and cover quickly drive team. Up to 4 representatives, 2 drivers, 1 human player, 1 coach from the same team. Only 1 human player represents an entire alliance in a match. Human player, student team member responsible for handling the scoring elements identified by wearing a competition supplied human player badge or identifying marker. So you will have a human player from your alliance, and you will choose between yourselves. You will decide which team is going to contribute the human player for the match. And if the teams cannot come to a consensus on which team will contribute the human player will be from the team who is listed as 1. So if you're red 1 or blue 1, then that will be the team supplying the human player. Though I believe it generally happens that teams are able to come to consensus there, talking among themselves. So
Sam, just to clarify then, each team has 2 drivers and 1 coach, and the coach can be is often a student. It could be an adult, but is often a student who's coordinating things.
Yes.
So there's 2 alliances, so that's 6. Then in addition to the 6, there's 1 additional person beyond that 6 that is the human player.
Yes.
But the human player is from only 1.
Yes, that is correct. And so there's a question, can we have just 1 driver? Yes. A team is not required to have 2 drivers. You can have 1. A team isn't required to have a drive coach either. I'm actually not 100% sure whether a team is required to contribute a human player in a case where, in a situation if they were listed as 1, but certainly generally, like, who you want, the drive team requirements are more maximums than they are minimums. But yes, if you all of your controls are on a single gamepad, then you can have just one driver. However, you are allowed a second driver, drive coach, and one human player for the alliance.
And one way that is divided up sometimes in the programming is that one driver will drive the robot, move the robot, and another driver will take care of any attachments, that kind of thing with it. There's no right or wrong way to do it, but that's a way that is often done.
Yes. So we're looking at human player rules specifically. I have found that these are some of the more frequently called penalties in the game. That they specifically, a couple of these human constraints were probably the most common. So it's very, very much recommended that your human player know these rules, and a couple of others very carefully. They've gone over them a number of times. So going through here, each violation of this rule results in a minor penalty. So that's a minor penalty, 10 points for any of these. Then there's a bunch of different things. Scoring elements in the substation storage area may not be handled until after the match has begun, with the exception of preload scoring elements. So what that means, and I'm actually going to pop back up to a picture of the field here. Yep, here we go. Here's a picture of the field. So you arrive to your alliance station. If you're on the Red Alliance, there are 4 stacks of cones here, and you will place your beacon. So that's your team scoring element. You will place your beacon in this area also. You can then, the only thing you can do with anything that's in this area is you can take 2 cones, well, each team can take 1, and put it on their robot, or touching their robot if they want to. So otherwise, these cones cannot be moved before the match begins. So reasons that you might want to move them, some teams have plans to have stacks of cones of particular sizes so that they know how many they've used. And the other thing that I see happen a lot is, because the human player is going to be feeding to both alliances, they want to demonstrate to their alliance partner, like, I'm going to put the cone here for you, or that, the alliance partner will say, we want the cone here. And sometimes it's an instinct to demo with a cone. That's not allowed because of that rule we just looked at. You can point to places on the field. That's totally fine. But demoing with a cone is not allowed. Not even the preload cones, because the only thing you can do with a preload cone is preload it. So heading back down to human player constraints, scoring elements may only be introduced onto the playing field via the substation. So the substation is that triangle. And looks like we're going to be jumping around here some. Okay. The substation is this triangle over here. So when you put down a cone, you have to put it in the substation. So it does not have to be completely in, and the substation is defined by the outside edge of this tape line. So if one corner of the cone is just barely over the outside edge of the tape line, that's fine, as long as the referees can tell that it's on top of the tape line and not fully outside. If you put down a cone fully outside, then that's breaking that part of the rule. And that is the only way that you are allowed to put cones or beacons into the field. It's also worth noting, Alliance team members drive team members are required to stay in the box, in the drive box. That is also not completely in. So the human player can and often will end up crouching, sitting, or kneeling somewhere like partly in the box, and then partly extending kind of towards the substation storage area. Now, it is important to know there But we'll get to there. We'll get to that. So scoring elements may only be placed into the substation during the driver controlled period. So during autonomous, you can't put anything into the substation. You can. So we've covered scoring elements in the substation storage area may not be handled until after the match has begun. So when the match begins, you have 30 seconds of autonomous. Now you can touch the cones. So if you want to make the cones into particular sizes of stacks, that's the time to do it probably in autonomous, because you can't put anything into the field, but you can handle the cones. But remember, don't put anything into the field until the driver control period. So after autonomous ends, you'll have the drivers pick up your controllers. 3, 2, 1, go. On go, the driver control period starts, and that's when you can start putting stuff in there. Human players may only place scoring elements into the substation that is adjacent to their corresponding alliance station and may not propel them out of the substation. This one doesn't come up a huge amount, but yeah, don't throw the scoring elements. And you can't put the scoring elements into the substation on the other side of the field. Drive teams may not use tools or devices to handle a scoring element unless there are extenuating circumstances. If there are extenuating circumstances, get in touch with your tournament director, Mr. Wade, and we will have a conversation about that. Again, this one doesn't come up that much. Human players may place only one scoring element in a substation at a time. There's no limit to the number that may be in the substation at a time. So you can place a whole bunch of cones, but it has to be one at a time. The other thing to remember is that you cannot place a cone and a beacon at the same time. Even if you've taken the cone, you put the beacon on top, and you put them in, that's two things you're putting in. So that's not okay. You can put a cone down and then put a beacon on top of it, but you cannot place a cone and a beacon at the same time. A human player cannot break the vertical plane of the playing field perimeter or hand deliver a scoring element to the playing field when there is a robot in the Alliance substation. This is the biggest one. And it's important to note, it's not a human player cannot hand deliver a scoring element to the playing field, it's break the vertical plane of the playing field perimeter. So if you're sitting next to the wall, as soon as you stick a hand so that it's over that wall, you are breaking the plane there. And that's what you can't do when there is a robot in the substation, when any part of any robot is in the substation. Similarly, a robot cannot enter the Alliance substation while a human player is placing scoring elements. So the driver needs to be careful as well as the human player being careful, because if the human player starts to go in, the driver then cannot drive into the substation. And then note, a disabled robot in an Alliance substation is not considered a safety hazard to the human player, therefore scoring elements may continue to be placed. So this is a situation, if a robot breaks down in the substation, then this is a situation where you want to make sure that you get declared disabled. We have talked about that at the previous meeting, but briefly, you indicate to the FTA and the referees that your robot is inoperable. You put down your controllers because you are not going to be able to try to come back for the rest of the match. And then you are declared disabled and you are no longer considered a safety hazard. Also not subject to most penalties, though being in an opposing substation is the exception to that rule. A disabled robot in the opposing alliance's substation remains eligible for all penalties associated with this rule. So don't go in the opposing alliance's substation. We've also covered that in a previous call. So there is one other rule that is important for human players, and that is, it's not a game specific rule, it is a G22. drive team contact with the playing field or robot. During a match, the drive team is prohibited from making contact with the playing field, any robot, or any game element unless allowed by game-specific rules. So this applies to the human player, and the only thing the human player is allowed to do by game-specific rules is introduce scoring elements to the playing field. So they can hand deliver scoring elements into the substation. So the reason it's important to understand the difference between that and any other kind of contact, something that happens very often, or reasonably often certainly, is the human player puts down a cone. A robot comes up to try to collect the cone. The robot knocks that cone over. Now, there's an instinct there to reach into the field, pick that cone up, and write it. You're not allowed to do that. That is violating G22 because you are touching something that is inside the field, and that's not allowed by a game-specific rule. The human player rules don't say that you're allowed to pick up fallen cones. They only say you're allowed to introduce new cones. So the penalty structure here, the first instance will result in a warning. Any following instances during the competition, so not just during the match, but during the entire competition, results in a minor penalty. Contact that affects scoring and or gameplay will result in the issuance of a yellow card at the discretion of the referees. So if you use like reaching into the field as a strategy to turn up fallen cones, then you could potentially get a yellow card. So that's not a thing you're allowed to do. I think that covers a lot of what I wanted to talk about. Since we've got a chunk of people here, do we have specific questions?
Let's start with games. We'll talk about general tournament questions later, but are there any game-specific questions for our head referee, Sam?
I have a question.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Regarding the robot and the human player not being allowed to touch the substation, does it mean just like the triangle part or the part of the tile that has the triangle part?
The substation is defined by the tape lines. So it's the blue or the red triangle. The outside edge of the substation is the outside edge of the tape line. However, it is a volume. It's not just an area. So if any part of a robot is above any part of the substation or on the ground in any part of the substation, then that robot is in the substation. However, if the robot is in this tile here, but it's not over the tape line, it's fully outside, then it's not in the substation. Does
Okay.
that make sense?
Yes, thanks.
Yep. Cool.
Any other questions? Do make sure you look at the penalties. There are a few.
Yes. Oh, check chat. How do you place cones into the substation without breaking the plane of the wall? You don't. So you cannot place cones into the substation without breaking the plane of the wall, though. I mean, you could theoretically, you could like, you kind of toss them in from outside. But generally you don't. So you are allowed to break the plane of the wall as long as there is no robot in the substation, and as long as what you are doing, as long as you are the human player. So that's, yeah. Let back up a little. We'll go over the conditions required in order to reach into the field. 1, you are the human player. 2, there is no robot in the substation. 3, what you are doing is placing a scoring element, so a cone or a beacon, and only one, into the substation that is on your alliance side. So that's when you're allowed to go into the field. Theoretically, you could like kind of gently toss cones into the field without breaking the plane of the wall. But that doesn't help you in any way, because the rule about not entering the field when there's a robot in the substation also says you may not hand deliver cones. So you would still be hand delivering cones in that situation.
And you could
So-
potentially be propelling them out of the substation, which would be
Yes,
another
yes, that
penalty.
would also
You
be-
could stack them up, stack up the
I
penalties.
could also
pretty
check the
quickly.
launching rule. I think the launching rule specifically applies to robots, but yeah, and in any case, yes, that's not, in general, the assumption is that a human player will reach over the wall in order to place a cone, but there are restrictions on when they may do that.
So the human player can break the plane anytime as long after the game is started, as long as there's no robot in the substation.
Yes. And as long as the reason that they're doing it is to introduce a code.
Yes.
So they can't do it to do anything else, like pick up a fallen code.
Right.
But no.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Well, if there are other questions later on, please feel free to ask them. Thank you, Sam. We appreciate that. The robot games rules are very important for that. Does Fiona have anything to share from the judging side?
I will stop sharing. Fiona is en route.
While she's coming over, I will mention that on our website, adventistrobotics.net, we have links to the live stream. So an easy way to let people know who want to watch the tournament to go to that live stream. The first Tech Challenge live stream will start about 10:30 in the morning Eastern time. Is what we expect to be going. Could vary just a little bit. And then the first Lego League live stream will start about at 12:30, 12:45, something like that. That's when the combined opening ceremonies will be, but that should be going on both of the live streams. All right, Fiona.
Thank you. Okay, good evening, everybody. I don't really have much to say because we have talked about it on a regular basis. I sort of like to say, don't forget that you've got 5 minutes to present to the judges in the interview, and that you've got, you've got 15 minutes in the interview altogether with your questions as well. And don't forget that you're expected to bring a portfolio, which you're going to give in on Saturday evening, so we can get all of those to the judges before the interviews start.
So portfolios get turned in Saturday night. So so that's a good point to bring up. So Saturday night, we'll have a Vespers at 7:30 in the auditorium, not in the gymnasium, but the auditorium is just near the gymnasium there. And then immediately following that at 8 o'clock is when check-in will start. And Saturday night is when we are doing all the inspections. We want to get everybody through Saturday night. This is where gracious professionalism comes in. So if you see a team struggling, please step in and help them out. If your team is struggling, feel free to ask for help. That's what from other teams, that's what it's all about. Let people know that you've got a challenge, and everybody's here to help and make that successful. So I definitely do that. So Saturday night, you will bring your portfolio to check in, and you will bring your rosters from the first dashboard all printed out, ready to go. So make sure you have those things for check-in. Those are the two things you need to have. You'll hand those off. We will have a judging schedule for you either later this week or early next week, so you'll know what your judging times are. Judging will start right at 8 o'clock on Sunday morning. The first judging session will start right at 8 o'clock. So it just depends on who you are, where you are in that cycle. But judging will start right away with that and get going. So Saturday night, you will receive your buttons. Each team member gets a button. There'll be a coach button and 2 driver buttons for the designated people to wear who will be in the competition area, as well as there is a special human player button that would be added to anybody who is the human player for your team. And they all have your team numbers on them. So please do know your team numbers. That's an important part.
Safety glasses as well. So when
Yep.
you're giving in your portfolios and going to have your robot inspected, you will be in either the pit or on the field. So you need your safety glasses.
All right. Any tournament, general tournament questions or questions about the weekend? Anything like that? What question? Anybody have any questions for that? All right. Hopefully,
do.
okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Will each team have their own little station to park all their stuff, like
Yep.
a table?
Yeah, each team will have a 6 to 8 foot table in the pit area. There will be yours with a couple chairs there. There'll be power available to you in that at that pit area. That's your home base for that. It's where you can work on your robot, fix things. You can welcome to teams will decorate that. Feel free to. We have some mascots show up sometimes. We have all kinds of fun things show up. So you never know that come with that. So there's a lot of fun that happens in the pit area for decoration. You can do whatever you need to do. You can decorate it. You can not decorate it. That's up to you. There's no points awarded for decorations, but it's just kind of a fun thing for that. So yeah, but you will have that available to you in that area. So, yep. All right, so either we did a tremendous job of communicating, which we hope we did. We've been trying to do our best to
Definitely.
communicate with you, or we missed it all together, one of the two. So we either did really well or really bad. We're going to assume we did a good job of communicating. And like always, please reach out to us if you have a question, if there's anything we can do to help make your weekend successful. We want you to you and your team to have a fun time at the weekend. It will be intense. It will be fun. It'll be kind of a fun sporting event. So bring your team spirit, bring your enthusiasm, bring your gracious professionalism, and we're going to have a lot of fun there. So, all right, with that, we will go ahead and wrap up the call. And if you, like I say, if you have any questions, reach out. We're here to help you. Thank you all very much.